We get episode 6.
Which is great.
This
is what we come to Marvel
fantastic.
for.
But this is what Echo, they were trying for.
I thought of that a lot. Of just how much more invested I was in the culture they were presenting than in the culture they presented in Echo.
So this is Kahori reshapes the world.
Yeah.
And it's the part that, it ends with Doctor Strange showing back up.
Yeah.
Or Strange
seemingly
Supreme.
recruiting her.
This is why I hated the ending.
Yeah.
Because what made this episode great to me, it was in Native American and Spanish. There was no English in this episode, which is ballsy.
I will say this, because this was my one complaint, not the subtitles. Subtitles I don't care about. Anybody who lives in New York, and specifically up and down the Hudson, where the Mohawk region was, we all very much know that the Spaniards never made it anywhere close to here. Like, not even within 500 miles. The closest they made it was Florida. So,
but
no, I think you got it.
What if?
I think if you did it with the French, it works just as well.
True.
And is more canonically accurate to history.
See, I think though it's not necessarily the historical accuracy.
It just bothered me so much.
Most people, when they think about invaders to this country, it's conquistadors. So
I get that.
Yeah, and
I get that, but I think it's mixing your metaphors.
Yeah.
When having it be the French or the English and the French, I think that would add an element of realism to it. It'd be like if in Dances with Wolves, the conquistadors showed up, and you're just kind of like, I mean, I understand why,
I can see how that's
but it doesn't make any sense. And it totally takes you out of the story if you know anything about the region that they're from, which they are trying so desperately to bring you into. And it just struck me the wrong way. Because I was excited about this one. This is, Kahori is brand new. She's not in any comics.
Exactly.
She's not in anything. She's not in any movies,
and it was such
TV
a unique
shows.
take on the Tesseract and what it can do.
So good.
It was so good.
It was so brilliant and authentic. It was so exactly what I come to Marvel for in terms of the character and the storytelling and the arguments that are had, where you have this peaceful nation of people who live in this subspace and gain superpowers by being in it, and they just have a happy life there. And someone comes in and says, listen, just because you're happy and comfortable doesn't mean everybody else is. And we actually have the opportunity to do something about that. We have to do something about that. We can't just live happily and comfortably just because we can. We have a responsibility to help other people to also live happy, comfortable lives. And I love the way that they built the story. I love the way that they executed on the story. It's literally just the Spanish. If it wasn't Spaniards, I wouldn't care. It's literally just the Spanish. I can see an argument in my mind where the Spanish were looking for the Fountain of Youth. They hear all these stories which are indicative of just this universe, because the Tesseract Lake is kind of only from this universe. So that brings them to New York instead of just going to Florida. I can kind of see that avenue, and I don't need it spelled out, but it's just so weird. It's just weird idea. You
gotta have that. It is Marvel. I mean, we're talking about a space gem that gives people a separate world to live in.
It's true. It's just the weird little things that can shake you out of a story. You know, and I look at Prey, where they had French trappers, and they had a very similar kind of thing where the Frenchmen only speak French, so you can't, as an English speaker, you can't understand what they're saying. I thought it was brilliant having no one speak English.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
I thought that was so good.
That's why I thought they kind of ruined it by having Strange show up at the end and speak. It's like, I wish this was a one-off.
Yeah.
If this was a one-off, it would have been a great... And it was paced perfectly. It was written perfectly.
And not all these are paced perfectly.
Not even
a lot of them are very rushed.
But the part that killed me, and you just brought it up with Prey, is... What was it? 2 weeks ago we talked about Echo. Was it last week? It was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
When we talked about Echo, we said the problem with Echo is you wanted to be like Naru, who was the lead character in Prey.
Yeah.
and we didn't get anything close to that.
No.
We got that in this episode.
We got that here.
She was Naru. Like,
she
this
was amazing.
Is a female Native American who has no powers, but she's just a very strong person. And when she gets powers, then she's like, now I'm going to fuck shit up.
This is what I have to do.
Exactly. It has so good.
It has that Captain America feel.
Yes. Very much so.
I know what's right and what's wrong, but
Yes.
I can't do anything about it, but I try every day to do what I can, and then I'm given the ability to directly affect the situation.
Yes.
How do I handle that?
Exactly.
And I thought this was so good.
It was so good.
Like, top to bottom, I had no
and
complaints.
I loved it when she showed up at the end to the Queen's Court.
Yeah.
And
that was also great.
That was so fucking good.
That was also great. Like, I was so happy with that. And just all of it. And the idea of breaking colonialism before it can even start.
Yep.
And just like all these dreams that you have as a modern person looking back at the sins of the past, where you're like, man, I just wish that they hadn't done this and they hadn't done this. And I understand that I'm only here because of these things, but at the same time, God, that's a lot of human suffering. So
and I would have
really
loved to
like
have
this.
seen a continuation of this. That's the thing. It's I want more.
If there was
which you kind of get in the final episode.
Yeah, I was about to say, if there is a sequel, I would like it for this. Also, a thing that Kahori brings to the story is a power set we haven't seen.
Yes.
There has not been a true speedster in the MCU.
Yep.
Quicksilver shows up for a hot minute. Makari shows up for a hot minute. Makari closer than Quicksilver was. They slowed Quicksilver pretty dramatically. But like, we have not had a Flash style speedster, and that's what this was, and it was so cool.
And it's like, what I loved is she was not only a speedster, she was a mix between Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
Because her other telekinesis powers were just like Scarlet Witch. It was like, I love that dynamic and how all of the Native Americans that had touched the Tesseract, they like glow blue, and it's so fucking beautiful and awesome.
And I love this idea that they have control over space.
Yes.
They can move anything and anywhere in space.
Yes.
And it's just like, that's perfect. You got it in one.
Yeah.
That's what we were looking for.
And it makes me madder at Marvel that we can get something like this done so well. And this is, I guarantee, probably 99% of the people that watch What If, this will be their least favorite episode because it's not in English. It doesn't have any of the superheroes in it. And it's like, but you're getting a good fucking story.
You're getting the best story What If has told.
Oh, by far.
By a country mile,
yes.
the best story What If has told. This is the first authentic, like, it's more than an Elseworld story.
Oh, yeah.
It's so much beyond that, and it's so good. It's just a really good superhero story. Has kind of a Tarantino revenge story to it. Like, it's just really good. It hits on all these levels really satisfactorily. And then on top of it, they nail the superhero stuff of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got it all.
Yeah.
You can do it. I don't know if it's that you need to bring in outside sources, if that was what it was, or something else, but you can do it. You have shown that you can do it. Go out and do it macro.
Yeah.
Take this as a base seed and do it macro.
And they're not going to do that.
No, of course not.
So we go to episode 7, which is What If Hela Found the 10 Rings?
No, we're right back to, and we're back on our face. We were at the height of the highs and... What the fuck was the point of this?
It was so dumb.
I get what they were doing, but what the fuck was the point of this?
The point of it was that final scene of the last episode where they're all falling into the pit and Hela throws her helm.
But it was a different Hela.
10 rings. I know, but it's like they needed to like really slam you in the face with everything.
But the premise of the show is that some universes are unique for the decisions made by specific characters.
That's why they fucked this up.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, what was the point of this? Argumentatively, the point is you have a bunch of villains who get together and decide not to be villains.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, but it's literally just Shang-Chi. It's literally just Shang-Chi the movie, except compressed to 30 minutes.
And the beginning of the first Thor.
And the beginning of Thor. And I was just like, this does nothing for me. Hela doesn't truly show an understanding of mercy by the end of the movie.
No, not even at all.
Hela doesn't grow as a character in a meaningful way. No one shows any kind of change. And Odin is waging this war for no reason. Yeah. And on top of it, you bring Idris Elba and Cate Blanchett into it. Why the fuck? What are we doing? What is happening?
And the fact that they would try to play it off like the goddess of death, who's been the goddess of death for millennia, is going to have a 30-minute arc which is going to change
She's going to eat, pray, love for a week.
No!
And get over it.
She's banished to hell forever. She's goddess of death. She's not going to fucking change in a half hour.
And
just because you introduced her to a different culture.
I just hated it. I just hated every moment of it. And I was left sitting there like, for the second time this season, what are we doing? You put so much time and money and effort into this. You had to go through so many people who had to okay so many portions of this for nothing. Yeah. This is nothing. This is less than nothing. This means nothing to anyone. I can't imagine a single person who looks at this episode and is like, oh, that's my favorite episode of What If.
Yes.
This is so nothing. This is a giant, vacuous, black hole nothing. And I'm just left wondering, like, but we're not doing What If the Punisher got the symbiote. We're not doing that. No. We're not doing anything with Daredevil. No. Nothing. We're not, hell, I would take your weird hybrid universes where you take two characters and you smash them together and you say, what would happen if Spider-Man and Moon Knight were the same person?
Well, and
I would take that over this.
To me, still the greatest What If story is what if Spider-Man never got rid of the symbiote?
Yeah.
And for them, I mean, they've introduced most of the characters now except for the Black Cat who ends up ending the story and the Fantastic Four, but they have pretty much, Black Bolt and Kingpin. Yeah. They've introduced them all. It's like, that's such a great story.
What if Punisher joined Heroes for Hire? There's so many things you could do, man. And you're doing none of them.
Introduce these characters that you're not introducing the MCU
that you haven't had a chance to really flush out. You bring them in their own story, and you say, okay, we're bringing back Colleen Wing, and we're bringing back Daredevil, and we're bringing back Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and we're actually going to do the street-level Defenders, and all these other things that you could be doing, and instead, it's this, which is nothing, means nothing, goes nowhere, isn't entertaining, isn't fun to watch, isn't funny, tries at length to be funny, never funny. No. Just the amount of bad one-line quips they give Cate Blanchett is embarrassing. Yeah. And I was just like, what was the fucking point of this? You wasted 30 minutes of my life, you goddamn time vampire. Yeah. Why did you do this?
No, it was terrible.
Yeah, I hated this one. This one was so frustrating. So it does move on
to one that is better, which is the Avengers Assembled in 1602.
I like this one. It's
not great,
but it's a 60-40. It's a 60-40, maybe 65-35. I'll give you a 65-35. I think that there's still problems with it, but I like the conceit of it. And for the most part, I like the build of it.
Yes.
But to go over the plot very quickly, at the end of the Captain Carter episode, she gets pulled into a teleportation hole by Wanda Maximoff. Without the Darkhold, which is very impressive, quite frankly.
Super impressive.
So she gets pulled into this alternate reality. And I do like this idea that Captain Carter just is forever stuck going through the multiverse in various phases. Sometimes she goes home, sometimes she's off doing adventures for extended period of time. But she is always pulled into these other multiversal situations. I thought that was kind of great. You need a Captain America doing stuff, and I like Peggy Carter. I like Captain Carter. She's written a lot better than she was in season 1, where the first episode of What If, I found her extremely grating, and it wasn't until the end where she was paired up with other people where I was like, okay, I like this character, whereas Here, I think that she's written well the whole way through. All the episodes that she's in, I think she does a really good job. So she is pulled into this universe where something has happened that has taken the year 1602 and the people of 2018 and kind of slammed them together. And so you have all these heroes doing things.
And I believe this was the first, it didn't happen earlier in the season, where Captain Carter is actually conversating with the Watcher.
Yes, she's actually
this
talking
one was
to
the
him.
first. Oh yeah, because I couldn't remember. I didn't think it happened earlier.
Because he's narrating on the roof.
Yes, and she hears him
and she's like, "Are you going to actually help, or are you just going to sit here and talk to me?" And no, I thought, again, that's another dynamic that I really liked. I thought that whole thing was really great. I think Peggy Carter is a really good avenue to build out that character. I think that's a good place to start. I like this episode pretty well. I'm glad that they held to the 1602 line that is Steve Rogers, who's in the wrong time period. There's a very awkward comic book where Steve Rogers has become part of a Native American tribe and is in Roanoke, Virginia, when the English land there, and all these other things. And you don't need to go into that in 1602. We don't need to do all that. No. But I like this. I like the Robin Hood side of it. I like the two captains, kind of the Rogers, Carter back and forth. Still too much Happy Hogan.
Oh, way too much.
Too much Happy Hogan. This is a lot of Happy Hogan. There's other characters I would be so much more interested in. It's like how Loki has to be in the background doing something stupid. I'm like, I don't care about this.
Yeah, him doing the Hamlet or
you
Shakespeare.
Gotta stop.
It's like,
you gotta stop. I don't care. You gotta stop. It's too much. It's like how Taika Waititi slams so many jokes into Love and Thunder. We're getting slammed with so much Hiddleston and Favreau, and I don't care. I'm not here for it. That's not what I came here for. But overall, I do like this episode. I think it's a pretty good reinterpretation. I think, again, it's a little rushed. But I also think this is the best episode with Tony Stark in it. Yeah. Honestly, I thought that this was the best version of that character.
And the important thing is it did kind of set up the final episode better. Yeah. Because I was concerned with what happened with episode 7 and not knowing what the end of 6 meant. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck? And after you read the title of Strange Supreme intervened for episode 9, you're like, okay, I could kind of see that with 6. Then what the fuck was 7?
Yeah, what's going on here?
And then 8 is kind of more in line, setting it up.
Yeah. No, 7 is just such a ringer of just like, man, you just fully distracted from everything we were doing. We had all this momentum we were building, and then we have this stupid throwaway. We don't know where to put it. Do we put it early on and disassociate the fans from the series? Do we put it later on and interrupt the action? I don't know. And that's exactly how episode 7 came out. I don't know where to put it. It doesn't fit anywhere. It's stupid and a waste of time. I think you just got to not do it. That's all. I did love the premise of 1602 being that Steve chips one of the Infinity Stones, and that's the moment that all the predicating moment. I was like, that's really cool. I like.
No, it had some cool moments to it. It was, that's the problem with. I had watched 6, 7, 8, and 9 all together, and after 6. I kind of judged the other ones, and so I'm kind of like, fuck, I shouldn't do that. Yeah. And this is one of the ones, I went back and rewatched 6, 8, and 9, and this is the one that I'm glad I rewatched. Yeah. Because 6 I knew was great, 9 I knew I enjoyed, like it was a good ending for me. 8 was the one where I was like, I still don't know how I feel about this. Yeah.
So, and to have it not be just a gimmick, to have it be like a real episode that does impact the entire season and shows actual character growth. I think that's an easy way to do kind of these what if stories if you did still want to build out an actual.
It was closest to me to like Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah, yeah.
Where you're having that kind of period piece, but you still have characters. And
Marvel's terrible at those.
They're horrible.
They're so bad. Like I can't get over how much better DC is at animated stuff than Marvel. I just can't get over it.
Yeah, night and day.
Yeah,
night and day.
So to finish off, we have the last episode.
What if Strange Supreme intervened?
I like this episode. I had some moments where I couldn't help but laugh. I'm looking at you, Captain Carter, wearing Hela's headdress. That was stupid.
That was dumb at the end.
That was stupid when the Collector did it, and it's stupid here.
And they set it up so well to where, okay, so Doctor Strange, Strange Supreme shows up, talks Captain Carter into joining him, saying he's trying to save the universe and he's collecting all the villains.
I'm the watcher, but I'm not watching.
Exactly. I'm doing. And then he sends her to a planet to collect one more, what he says, villain who's destroying
reality-killing villain.
And it ends up being Kahori, who's like, no, he's the one that's trying to resurrect his universe
by burning all of these people.
Good and bad.
Yeah. That was the thing, was that if it had just been bad, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. But then you find out he's collecting heroes too.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that is a problem.
That's kind of fucked up.
And I do wish that I don't want to have to pause through and see all the characters in the background. I didn't feel like Spider-Verse, you kind of get a sense and you can kind of eagle eye all the different characters that you're looking for. Here, there were a lot of moments where I was like, who's here? Yeah. Who's here? I don't know who's here.
It did give us that great... Okay, so they were in like these little pods on the wall. It gave us a great... Very similar to Cabin in the Woods. Yeah. Where when she unleashes a bunch of them, they all show up to fight.
It reminded me of an episode of Steven Universe where this exact thing happens. Oh, really? The premise of Steven Universe is that a bunch of alien monsters are falling to Earth, and the aliens that have sworn to protect the Earth gems seal them in these gem crystals and then put them in a cave. And then there's an episode where all these monsters get out.
I got you.
And I was just like,
yeah, that's very similar.
But I didn't mind. It's fine. I really like the fighting with Kahori and Captain Carter.
See, and I agree, and that's why I don't like the whole thing where Thor throws his hammer and Hela throws her helmet and they get the weapons at the end.
I get what they were doing, but it was too much. And again, you ended up with all these anonymous weapons. I wasn't looking at some of these weapons and being like, oh, that's Stormbreaker. Oh, that's Gungnir. You know, like those were there. But then there were just like a bunch of random swords. It was the Ebony Blade. Why wasn't the Ebony Blade one of them? You know, like you have opportunities,
it was the
and instead you just do
member berries. Yeah, that you're like, no, dude, they were holding their own with just the shield and the telekinesis powers. You didn't need to do that. You could have had him still.
Well, and the Infinity Stones. This again is an issue for me. How
powerful are they?
Well, I always go back to this issue. This has been an issue with What If since season 1. Infinity Stones, including in the MCU, do not work outside of their home universe. Yes. Except in What If, because fuck that shit, we don't care. And I'm just like, I care. I kind of care about that. I think that's important. But sure, if you want Captain Carter to wear the Ultron armor, but it doesn't look like the Ultron armor anymore, I guess you can do that. It's a little weird that you have her all I can think is Haley Atwell in live action, where she keeps on thrusting her chest to shoot bolts of energy at Strange. I'm just like, you couldn't like put it on an arm.
But then, and once again, they take like, how powerful are these Infinity Stones? Because at one point she has all 5 of them in a bare hand, and she punches him, and it's like, how is any of that happening?
And how is she able to conduit that level of energy?
Yeah.
Like, you need some serious... I know, the Ultron body. I kept on telling myself she has the Ultron body. It's fine. But, like...
And I was agreeing with you on that, except for when she held 5 of them in her fucking hand.
Then you have that moment, and you're like, I don't know. Also, she doesn't look like she's wearing the Ultron armor. No. The Ultron armor just becomes her suit, and it just looks like her suit that she was already wearing. And I'm like... but, like, guys, I can't emphasize enough. These things are so powerful, they will liquefy you if you touch them. Yeah. So, like, kind of important to have something. You know, it's like kind of grabbing a live wire. I'm not saying you can't do it. Yeah. I'm saying it'll kill you if you did it.
But then, with her having all 5, it should have been really easy to stop Strange. But once again, how powerful are these fucking stones? Like, it's like, you have the most powerful weapon in the entire universe on you, and you can't stop.
You can literally change reality with a thought, and nobody is creative enough to actually stop the villain from doing what they're doing. Like, you could just, you know, like, Thanos snap it, because we get a Thanos snap from Killmonger at one point, and you could just Thanos snap it and have it be that Strange never bonded with all these monsters. It's all gone. And that's just how the 6 stones work, is just like, you have the ability to instantly change anything because you are the commander of time and space and energy.
And I didn't quite get how many time stones are there, because she had one and he had one.
Well, they're from different universes.
But
Strange had his
that's
time
true.
stone.
That's true.
Carter had the time stone from another universe.
I was just like, God damn it.
Yeah.
This is so
no,
dumb.
but this is why.
This is
why we have this rule.
Yeah.
Is because otherwise you end up with Ultron trying to destroy the multiverse, and you're like, why hasn't that happened before? Because he literally couldn't do it. Because as soon as he left his universe, he would lose all the power of the stones. So, it's fine.
And to me, it's the part that was most depressing is you have such a great team up. I think Kahori and Captain Carter
so good.
were so good because they're so different. They come from such different places. Their powers are so different, and they work so well together.
Yeah.
And then you just bastardized it with that. And I didn't get that.
And I also look at, first off, having the Hela helmet. I know you guys all think it's really cool and you're trying to sell merch. It does not look cool on literally anyone else.
No.
It looks dumb as hell.
Yeah.
All right. We now have 2 characters wearing it. They both look dumb as hell when they wear it. Also, Captain Carter doesn't really use the powers associated with the helmet in the fight. So what was the point of this?
Hence back to why they had Hela in episode 7 is because they're like, oh, the helmet.
Yeah.
The helmet.
The helmet's going to be important. No, it's not. It's not important. And then the other thing, going off of your point, they do what we were talking about earlier. They have 3 characters. This isn't a big army fight or anything like that. We get moments of that, but this is a connected fight, kind of similar to the end of Civil War, where you just have 3 people, 2-on-1. It's just a matter of who wants it more. Nobody has the same powers. Everybody is bringing in their own thing. So in that way, they trump Civil War, because in Civil War, Cap and Bucky still essentially have the same power set. Whereas here you have Magic versus Captain America versus a brand new, pseudo Flash.
Yeah.
Which is so funny if we end up getting to Crisis.
Oh, God, which I don't think we will. But...
No, we're running out of time as is. But I did like this a lot more than I thought. I think cohesively as a whole, the season works better than season 1 did. But it is by no means perfect.
No.
And it does still have a lot of cringe in there. There's a lot of lines that are just kind of stupid. There's a lot of moments that you just kind of have to be like, I don't care why Ant-Man has a super suit under his Robin Hood costume.
Yeah.
Because if I care, then it's going to be all I think about.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to ignore that.
I mean, to me, I'll always take away from this season is it gave us a new superhero.
Yeah.
Who I want to see more of.
I genuinely want to see her in other things. Yeah. Genuinely.
But like if they made a live action movie like Prey.
Yeah.
But with her getting these powers, because if you think about it, CGI wise, you wouldn't have to do too much.
No. It's just light show.
It would be awesome.
It'd be great. And I would totally be down for an hour and a half long version of this episode.
Yes.
It is by far the best episode of the season. It's by far the best episode of the series, quite frankly.
But once again, it's the balls that Marvel should have but will never do on a consistent basis.
This is what drives me crazy.
To where you have an episode without a single word of English spoken until the very end.
It reminds me of Harry Potter at the height of their powers when the movies were coming out. And they kept on coming out with these hour and 40-minute long movies because that was the length they thought the audience had time for. And I was just sitting there like, you fucking idiots. Do you not understand that you're at the top of the mountain right now?
Yeah.
And you can do anything and everybody will be in for it. And if you did something as bold as making a 3-hour Harry Potter 6 that doesn't have the Weasley fight in the middle but does do all of the elements that story needs to have, no one would complain.
Yeah.
Maybe some 10-year-olds would be like, I gotta pee. But they did that with Infinity War, and you know what? It just became a meme.
Yeah.
When do you pee during Infinity War or Endgame or whatever the fuck it was? But like, people get over that shit. It becomes part of the joke, part of the bit. And you guys had that capability.
Well, I feel like they had it starting with Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
Because after Prisoner of Azkaban, they nailed it so well that really anyone... And then Goblet of Fire being one of the longest books is where they really fucked it up and they cut out shit and they didn't put shit. And it's like,
Yeah.
Dude, three and a half hours, 3 hours, people would see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I look at Marvel now, and again, it's the same thing. You're playing with house money after Endgame. Anybody who's still in is in, and you aren't bold at all. Mm-hmm. You're not experimental. Mm-hmm. You say you're gonna be. You say you're gonna continue to go down this path you've set. Instead, you fully ignore your own canon mm-hmm. regularly. You come up with these really hackneyed, stupid stories to tell.
Well, not only do you ignore the canon, you come out and flatly say that you don't give a fuck about the canon.
Well, I'm just talking about the fact that no one in the MCU talks about the snap ever.
Yeah.
What year is it? Marvel, but seriously, what year is it?
I don't think they know.
I don't either. I think they gave up. I don't think they cared. And that's my point, is like, you were at the top of the mountain. Mm-hmm. You could have done anything, and we all would have run after you. Anybody who was still in would have run after you. And you look at WandaVision, that was something that I was not interested in. I was interested in it in concept, but I was so burned out on Marvel. I didn't watch the first 3 weeks of it, and then I started watching it kind of out of obligation. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. And it pulled me back in, and that's what you could have done, and you just didn't do it. You just decided to phone it in every fucking time. You decided to do the universe version of, hey, we're going to have this entire episode be Darcy and Happy and Maria Hill. I hope that's okay. This entire episode is going to be Nebula, but a bad version of Blade Runner. I hope that's cool. This episode is going to be what if Hela was a good person, but not actually. But that's the conceit, but we're not going to deliver on it. This sucks. This so all uniformly sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that a lot of elements of this work, but damn, I wish you guys would just take chances.
Well, and that's the problem, is Marvel, they've burned us so much mm-hmm. that I don't have faith that anything in the future will be good.
Oh, no, I still say when I see a Marvel property is coming out, of any kind at this point, even Deadpool 3, which just wrapped this week, I am extremely nervous.
Yeah.
For many reasons, not the least of which being that it has a mid-July release and they only just finished shooting the thing this week, which means you now have 6 months to do all of the CGI for this movie.
The only thing I give with that is they did say they had the first half done prior to the strike, and they edited and did all of it on the first
That's
half.
good to hear, because I genuinely don't know how they could achieve that release. It's kind of like No Man's Sky. I'm like, but this isn't gonna happen. No. Like this isn't gonna be. If it does happen, it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen, it's not gonna happen for another 6 months. So I honestly wouldn't have been surprised if Deadpool 2 got moved to November or even March 2025. They're continuing with July. We'll see how that goes. I have no faith. I have as much faith in that as I have in Madam Web, maybe a little bit more, just because of Ryan Reynolds and everything.
I have far more faith in that than Madam Web.
But I just think it's gonna get polluted. I don't see how it's not going to be polluted by a bunch of things. It's like Wonder Man. How is it going to be
Wonder
good?
Man's going to be terrible.
How is it going to be good? Yeah. Because right now, I don't see an avenue where it could be good.
The only thing that's worse than an on-time Marvel product is one that's been delayed.
Yeah.
And since Wonder Man was delayed and then thought canceled and then back on again, it's not going to be good. There's
Blade
no
is in that
way
same
it's gonna
camp.
Be good. Exactly.
And you had that whole they were building the Midnight Suns.
Yep.
Is that still going to happen? That's not going to happen anymore. You know, like all these ideas are cool, and then you have the worst execution possible for the last 3 years. And I have no faith that it's going to work. I'm pleasantly surprised when I have things like this, and I'm like, oh shit, I actually liked more of this than I didn't like.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a huge win.
That's a massive win for them. I don't think they realize how big a win that is for them.
But like so much of it, I'm just like, I'm not, that whole idea of we have to cram Loki into things. I'm not going to watch Loki season 2, man. I don't care. And now after everything, how in the world is this going to work?
They've Look, I did finish Loki season 2.
Whew.
It's fucking terrible.
I haven't watched
Everyone loves
one
it.
second of it.
Everyone loves it, but in my head, it's like you love it because you're looking at a character that's not that character anymore.
Yeah,
it's not.
They've
Loki
moved
anymore.
so far away from who Loki
Exactly.
was. It's like when I'm not going to use the example that jumps to mind.
Okay,
but it's like when someone does something terrible. And then 15 years later, nobody remembers that. And everybody is like, but you remember how Loki was like a mass murderer, though, right? Like, just nobody remembers that Loki was a mass murderer?
Yeah. He's retired. He doesn't know where we live.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. And it's just like, I've watched it and I'm like, people love it because it's flashy and it's got a very weird storyline, but it's like, but it's not Loki. Like, it's not that character anymore.
No.
It's
and I like
version.
Loki, the character. Case in point, I have the old Loki pop figure that was played by Richard E. Grey from season 1. And I have that because it is such a great encapsulation of the comic book version of Loki. And this does nothing for me. And Mobius, as opposed to Morbius, doesn't do anything for me. I want to like all the side characters. I don't care.
Yeah, they're terrible.
I don't care, man. And I come to comic book stuff for the comic book stuff. Yeah. And if that stuff sucks or doesn't make sense, it destroys anything that I'm getting out of it.
And let me tell you, the thing I was most concerned about with season 2, and has become even more cringy than I thought, is the rapist playing the main villain.
Yeah, I bet.
Or not rapist, the abuser. And I'm looking at him like, this guy's a hunk of shit. And I'm watching it and I'm like, how did this get released?
Yeah.
How did it get, like, how, they're always trying to be so front-sighted with, like, getting rid of Johnny Depp before they knew anything and all this. It's like, it was pretty much out there that this is true. Like, all these other women started coming out of the woodwork. And then they release the series, and right after it's released, it's like, he's guilty.
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting rid of him. It's like, well, why the fuck did you release this series?
Yeah.
He's in it, and every time I saw him, I wanted to puke in my mouth.
Yeah. No, I don't understand a lot of the decisions with Loki season 3. Honestly, not for nothing, Marvel. I think you could have had one of those lost seasons of television. Yeah. Where you just bag the whole thing. How much money are you actually going to make off of Loki season 2? Nobody's buying the toys for Loki season 2. Nobody cares.
No one gives a fuck.
And as soon as that bubble burst, all of us, our first thought wasn't, I guess the first thought was, how are they going to resurrect Kang? And then the second thought was, I think it's easier to move on to someone else.
Yes.
I still say the easiest avenue is to do exactly what Warner Brothers did. Even though he's already in universe because you wasted him in Doctor Strange, you cast Mads Mikkelsen as Doctor Doom, and you say he took over the Council of Kang.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the story we're going with. You can introduce the Fantastic Four and everything else. I honestly don't know how else you could do it.
Yeah. Which they have talked, they want to move on to Doctor Doom as being the big bad, which would make absolute
Mads
sense.
Mikkelsen is the perfect guy for it.
He is, but like you said, since he's
already
Doctor
in universe, they fucked up.
They fucked up big time.
Like so many things with Doctor Strange, they fucked up.
Yeah, so we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to get to Crisis on Infinity or Infinite Earths because we're already at 2 hours. So we hope you enjoyed this so far. We will get onto that next week, among other things. We hope you have a good, safe weekend. We hope you enjoy the football games. Once again, I'm not going to be watching them.
I don't know if I'm going to be watching them, quite frankly. I might watch the highlights afterwards. I might record them and watch them without commercials.
I will only watch the highlights if the Chiefs lose because I will watch them crying happy tears.
True.
But once again, we are still working on a lot of stuff this year. It's going to be a great year for us. You can find Al at...
You can find me at jutsumstudios.work under the Bronx Division tab. And
you can find me at the Pittsburgh Lightning.
There's also an idea of splitting up the show and putting it on YouTube that I think we should also discuss.
Oh, that'd be good.
So maybe we can do that sometime this week.
Fantastic.
Until then,
peace out, friends.
Have a great week, friends and enemies, and we'll see you back here for more Elseworld madness.
Yeah.